calendar. Stonewall Inn, 51 to 53 Christopher Street, Manhattan, LP 2574. Landmark site is Manhattan Block 610, Lot 1 in part, consisting of the land on which the buildings at 51 to 53 Christopher Street are situated. The Commissioners, the Landmarks Preservation Commission designated 51 to 53 Christopher Street as part of the Greenwich Village Historic District on April 29, 1969. 2 months later, on June 28, 1969, the Stonewall Inn was the starting point of the Stonewall Rebellion. The buildings largely retain its Stonewall era appearance, including features that are important to its use as an LGBT bar. As the events happened post-designation, these features and the event are not reflected in the report. In order to ensure their protection, we are recommending that the Commission calendar a historic district building as a potential individual landmark. Gail Harris will present.
The Stonewall Inn, the starting point of the Stonewall Rebellion, is one of the most important sites associated with lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender history in New York City and the nation. On June 28, 1969, a routine police raid at this gay bar in Greenwich Village resulted in active resistance, forcing the police to retreat into the bar, setting off 5 days of rioting and demonstrations with unprecedented cries of gay pride and gay power. The Stonewall Uprising was the catalyst for a new, more radical phase of the LGBT liberation movement. Within a few months in direct response to Stonewall, several activist organizations were formed in New York City, including the Gay Liberation Front, the Gay Activist Alliance, Radical Lesbians, and the Street Transvestites Action Revolution. Soon, new organizations were being established across the U.S. and throughout the world to promote LGBT civil rights. A few pictures. The one on your bottom right was taken the night of the riot, the first night of the riot. The others were taken perhaps the second night. On June 28, 1970, the first anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion was commemorated as Christopher Street Liberation Day. The main event was a march from Greenwich Village to Central Park. That day, pride marches were also held in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Chicago. Those celebrations have since grown into the internationally celebrated LGBT Pride Month, with events held annually throughout the world. The 2 buildings that comprised the Stonewall Inn were originally built in the 1840s as stables, and in 1930 were merged with the first story to give them a unified facade. The ground floor commercial space originally housed a bakery. In 1934, it was taken over by the Stonewall Inn restaurant, and after a fire, reopened in 1967 as the Stonewall Inn and Gay Club. They are within the Greenwich Village Historic District, which was designated on April 29, 1969, just months before the Stonewall Uprising. From the time of the Stonewall Rebellion, the buildings still retained the brick padding, arched entrances, small storefront windows associated with LGBT bars of this era, and stuccoed upper stories. In recognition of the importance of the Stonewall Rebellion, which occurred post-designation of the Greenwich Village Historic District, and to ensure the preservation of the building's architectural features to this period of significance, the Commission is now considering the Stonewall Inn for designation as a New York City landmark.
Thank you, Gail. Of course, I'm very proud, and I can think of no better time than to bring the Stonewall Inn before the Commission and recommend its consideration as an individual landmark at the outset of LGBT Pride Month. The events that took place at Stonewall in 1969 galvanized a movement that brought LGBT rights to the fore in New York with rippling effects throughout the country. The site represents a powerful movement, not only in LGBT history, but also the history of New York and the nation. Stonewall Inn has come to symbolize much more than the events themselves at home and internationally, and its iconic place makes it worthy and deserving of designation. So I strongly recommend the Commission to calendar this property. As you know, and as Gail and Mary Beth mentioned, the Stonewall Inn is already within the Greenwich Village Historic District. And while it's unusual for the agency to propose designation of buildings that already enjoy historic district status and protection, in this particular case of Stonewall, as noted, the events of this cultural significance took place after the historic district designation report was drafted. And the report itself is a key regulatory tool for this agency and for the Commission in the decision-making process. Individual landmark status would ensure the preservation of the site's features as it relates to its cultural period of significance in 1969 and June 28th. LGBT rights and marriage equality are civil rights issues of our time, and we have made great strides in the city, state, and nation. Designation of this iconic place would be our part in recognizing the social and political movement. I also just want to say that calendaring the site would reaffirm the administration as well as this Commission's commitment to honoring the diverse cultural and social history of New York. Are there comments or questions? Yes, Fred.
I'd like to just add my agreement with everything you've said, but to also add that I hope that maybe more places where cultural significant history has been made in New York, outside perhaps the architectural merits, and that might seem funny coming from an architect, but I think so much great history has occurred in New York that we should begin to look more carefully at those places. I think curating that is an important thing to do, or we might be looking at every block interested in history. But I think in my own neighborhood, the loss in the urban renewal era under Robert Moses of the printing press, where Leaves of Grass, Walt Whitman's greatest American poem of all time probably, was written, and it was just destroyed as if it was another old building. This just can't happen, and I think this example is a good one, but it's not the only one. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Yes, Abby.
I also agree in great part because I believe that buildings remember and they testify to history, sometimes unspoken or ephemeral. I do have a question though about the sign. What is its status? When did it go away? Will it return?
Mark, would you like to want to answer that question?
I certainly can't speak about when the sign, maybe Gail knows when the sign was removed.
I believe in 1989.
And as as we've discussed a couple of different times in different contexts, the Commission regulates the work, so we can't require the sign be returned absent a request for a special permit or something like that, where we can require restoration. But nothing prevents the owner from proposing to bring it back if he or she so desires.
How about, Mark, if it was there now,
It would be protected.
then we actually would be protected.
Right. I mean, but again, it'd be protected as long as it would be complicated in terms of the, content of the sign, but yes, the sign would be protected.
Any other comments? Okay, in that case, we take a vote to calendar this. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, so we will set the public hearing date for June 23rd. Thank you.